Judith Benhamou is a French journalist. In the early 1990s, she began her career as a journalist focusing on the art market, and she has a weekly column for Les Echos, the French newspaper, also the magazine Le Point. She also publishes articles related to the art market on her own blog, Judith Benhamou-Huet Reports. Judith Benhamou, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. So tell me, you are an artist? Yes.
Yes, I'm a painter. I started doing Google Zoom interviews as a way to meet people in the art world. Yeah, and you're an art aficionado.
I'm an art critic and an art journalist.
I was looking at your YouTubes about 3 years ago is when it seems like you started publishing your videos.
Yes, exactly. In fact, I write about art for 30 years now, and I decided around 3 years ago to write in English to be able to speak to the world, not in French anymore. I think the good thing about very naturally, it happens that I could add to my writing some videos to give another vision, another entrance to the subject, and more vivid, I think.
It's some of your videos, it feels like performance art in itself.
Very nice. In fact, I'm very natural, and I do all my video through my iPhone.
Really?
Yeah, it's it's not much technique. I just have a stabilizer, and that's it. And so sometimes, I do it at last minute, very spontaneous. That's why it looked like a performance, but I wish it would be.
Well, I saw you did a video when you went to Amsterdam, and you had all those lights behind you.
That was great. It was in a church, and Christian Boltanski, a French artist, did a big installation there. And for a while, every week I was presenting my blog and the subject that I was doing on my blog, but I stopped that. But I think what's interesting is that it will become big archives about the artist, about the auctioneer, the dealers, even some collectors, art historians, curators. It will be a big, huge archive accessible to everyone. And I think that's cool.
It is cool. So 30 years ago, you started as an art journalist, art critic. How did you pick art? How did you get into that?
I could invent a legend, but the real story is that at that time, one of my best friends was working for a small auction house in Paris, and by night I was going with him to cocktails. And very quickly, I had some article to propose to some publication, and very quickly I had a column. It was French, but it happened like that. But I studied law and political sciences, so I was not educated in art at all at the beginning. But since then, I learned a lot. I dedicated the majority of my time to visiting museums, to meet artists, to travel all around the world for art. And after 10 or 15 years, you begin understanding what's going on. Last week, I was in Venice because, this big collector called François Pinault is a French businessman. He opened a place a few years ago in Venice, and there's a new show there. So I went for that. And so how did you happen to know what I'm doing? Through what?
So actually what happened, did you see the video we sent you with Tanya Koenig in Switzerland? So
the video, no.
So Tanya Koenig is she does what you do, but she just started. She's very new at it, 4 years. But she's a journalist out of Zurich. And after I interviewed her, you started popping up on my on my internet, and I think that it must have
Oh, that's strange. On YouTube?
search engine optimization. Like when you Google search a piece of clothing, and then after that, like Google knows that you want to look at.
That's cool.
And so
Good news for me.
after I interviewed her, you started popping up, and I said, "Oh, who's this?"
Wow, that's interesting. But what did pop up? The link to my blog or what?
I think it was the videos. The first, so I started writing about Simon De Purry, and then the next time I got on my phone, you were on there interviewing Simon De Purry, and I said, "Oh, who's this?" And so then I looked at you, and at first I thought you were just doing this because you were in lockdown. I was like, "Oh, here's this journalist," and then the more I see you have thousands of videos.
Yeah. I did it a long time ago already. I was ready for the lockdown.
Yeah, it's funny that now the lockdown happened and people like you that were already doing it already had the platform.
Yeah. But so what is your audience?
Initially, my audience was for artists learning how to be artists. There are things called calls for artists that people submit. It's like sending your resume into galleries and exhibitions, and a lot of artists don't know about that. They think that when you're an artist, the only venue is like a gallery, and they don't know how to get into it. And so I started explaining to people how to sell their art, and then little by little, I started reaching out to other people, and now I'm creating.
And so let's keep on like that. I need to go back to rush to my writings.
You need to get back to writing.
Yeah. So do you have other questions?
I was wondering if you could just talk about the worth of art really quick, your books.
It's a very paradoxical theme. The idea was that the value of a work of art is not only linked to the work of art itself, it's also linked to who is selling, who was buying before, where it is sold, what's the nationality of the painter, and things like that. So I tried to explain in an entire book how it was working and how the marketing of the auction houses and the fairs is working.
It took up 2 volumes.
Yes, in fact, I wrote it in 2001 and a second time to give the new ideas. I could write a third time, but I just want to do exciting things, not only rewriting what I've written already.
I have a question. So you interview these auction houses, and then the auction houses now with the Zoom society, they're developing these sort of virtual exhibitions, studio tours, streaming.
Yeah.
What do you, as an art critic, what would you like to see happen if we continue to follow this course?
I have no idea, but I need to see real art, because the danger is that also the art which fits the screen will be more successful. I'm not sure that you can admire Van Gogh on video like you can admire it in real, in flesh. So it's important to always remember that what you see on the screen is not the reality. Very important. Above all for painters. But it also works for photos. You can't imagine the scale of the photo, and for sculpture too. So it's important to leave things in real and not in virtuality. That's a very important point.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I thank you for meeting me.
So good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Don't forget to follow Melchor on YouTube.